Milton, thou shouldst be living at this hour. England hath need of thee. She is a fen of stagnant waters, altar, sword and pen. Fireside, the heroic wealth and hall of bower have fortified their ancient English dower. Of inward happiness we are selfish men. Oh, raise up, return to us again, and give us manners, virtue, freedom, power. Thy soul was like a star and dwelt apart. Thou hadst a voice whose sound was like the sea, pure as the naked heavens, majestic, free. So didst thou travel on life's common way, in cheerful godliness, and yet thy heart the lowliest duties of herself did lay.
When the blessed seed of Terra's faithful son, after long toil, their liberty had won, and passed from Pharian fields to Canaan land, led by the strength of the Almighty's hand. Jehovah's wonders were in Israel shown, his praise and glory was in Israel known, that saw the troubled sea and shivering fled, and sought to hide his froth-becurled head. Low in the earth Jordan's clear streams recoil, as a faint host that hath received the foil. The high, huge-bellied mountains skip like rams, amongst their ewes the little hills like lambs. Why fled the ocean, and why skipped the mountains? Why turn Jordan toward his crystal fountains? Shake earth, and at the presence be aghast of him that ever was, and aye shall last, that glassy clouds from rugged rocks can crush, and make soft rills from the fiery flint stones gush.
Psalm 136. Let us with a gladsome mind praise the Lord, for he is kind, for his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure. Let us blaze his name abroad, for of gods he is the God, for his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure. O let us his praises tell, that doth the wrathful tyrants quell, for his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure. That with his miracles doth make amazed heaven and earth to shake, for his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure. That by his wisdom did create the painted heavens so full of state, for his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure. That did the solid earth ordain to rise above the watery plain, for his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure. That by his all-commanding might did fill the new-made world with light, for his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure. And caused the golden-tressed sun all the day long his course to run, for his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure. The horned moon to shine by night amongst her spangled sisters bright, for his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure. He with his thunder-clasping hand smote the firstborn of Egypt's land, for his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure. And in despite of Pharaoh fell, he brought from thence his Israel, for his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure. The ruddy waves he cleft in twain of the Erythraean main, for his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure. The floods stood still like walls of glass, while the Hebrew bands did pass, for his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure. But full soon they did devour the tawny king with all his power, for his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure. His chosen people he did bless in the wasteful wilderness, for his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure. In bloody battle he brought down kings of prowess and renown, for his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure. He foiled bold Sion and his host that ruled the Amorian coast, for his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure. and large-limbed Og he did subdue with all his over-hardy crew. For his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure. And to his servant Israel he gave their land therein to dwell. For his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure. He hath with a piteous eye beheld us in our misery. For his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure. And freed us from the slavery of the invading enemy. For his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure. All living creatures he doth feed, and with full hand supplies their need. For his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure. Let us therefore warble forth his mighty majesty and worth. For his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure. That his mansion hath on high, above the reach of mortal eye. For his mercies they endure, ever faithful, ever sure.
On the death of a fair infant dying of a cough. O fairest flower no sooner blown but blasted, soft silken primrose fading timelessly, summer's chief honour if thou hadst outlasted bleak winter's force that made thy blossom dry. For he being amorous on that lovely day, that did thy cheek envermel thought to kiss, but killed alas, and then bewailed his fatal bliss. For since grim Aquilo his charioteer by boisterous rape the Athenian damsel got, he thought it touched his deity full near, if likewise he some fair one wedded not, thereby to wipe away the infamous blot of long uncoupled bed and childless eld, which amongst the wanton gods a foul reproach was held. So mounting up in icy palled car, through middle empire of the freezing air, he wandered long, till thee he spied from far. There ended was his quest, there ceased his care. Down he descended from his snow-soft chair, but all unawares with his cold kind embrace, unhoused thy virgin soul from her fair bidding place. Yet art thou not inglorious in thy fate? For so Apollo with unweeting hand whilom did slay his dearly loved mate, young Hyacinth born on Eurotas' strand, young Hyacinth the pride of Spartan land, but then transformed him to a purple flower. Alack, though so to change thee winter had no power. Yet cannot persuade me thou art dead, or that thy course corrupts in earth's dark womb, or that thy beauties lie in wormy bed, hid from the world in a low delved tomb. Could heaven for pity thee so strictly doom? Oh no, for something in thy face did shine above mortality that showed thou was divine. Resolve me then, O soul, most surely blessed, if so it be that thou these plaints dost hear. Tell me, bright spirit, wherever thou hoverest, whether above that high first moving sphere, or in the Elysian fields, if such there were. O say me true, if thou wert mortal wight, and why from us so quickly thou didst take thy flight? Wert thou some star which from the ruined roof, O shaked Olympus, by mischance didst fall, which careful Jove, in nature's true behoof, took up and in fit place did reinstore? Or did of late earth's sons besiege that wall of sheeny heaven, and thou some goddess fled amongst us here below to hide thy nectared head? Or wert thou just that maid who once before forsook the hated earth, O tell me sooth, and comest again to visit us once more? Or wert thou that sweet smiling youth, or of that crown matron sage white robed truth, or any other of that heavenly brood, let down in cloudless throne to do the world some good? Or wert thou of the golden winged host, for having clad thyself in human weed, to earth from thy prefix seat didst post, and after short abode fly back with speed, as if to show that creatures heaven doth breed, thereby to set the hearts of men on fire, to scorn the sordid world and unto heaven aspire? But oh, why didst thou not stay here below, to bless us with thy heaven-loved innocence, to slake his wrath whom sin hath made our foe, to turn swift Russian black perdition hence, or drive away the slaughtering pestilence, to stand twixt us and our deserved smart? But thou canst best perform thou office where thou art. Then thou, the mother of so sweet a child, her false imagined loss cease to lament, and wisely learning to curb thy sorrows wild, think what a present thou to God hast sent, and render him with patience what he lent. This if thou do, he will an offspring give, that till the world's last end shall make thy name to live.
Elegia Prima. Tandem, care, tua mihi pervenere tabile, pertulit et voces nantia carta tuas. Pertulit axitu dua deve castratinis sis ab ora. Virgivium prono qua petit amne salum. Multum crede juvat terras aluisis remotas. Pactus amans nostri, tamque fidele caput. Quotque mihi lapidum tellus langrinqua sodalum. Debet atgunde previ redere iusa velit. Me tenet ups reflua quam, tamesus aluet unda. Meque nec invictum patria ducis habet. Iam nec adum differum mihi cura revisere camum. Nec dudum vetiti melaris angit amor. Nuda nec alve pancent, umbrasque neguntia moles. Quam male fibiculis convenit ille locus. Nec dure libet usque minas perferre majusti. Ceteraque ingenio non subunta meo. Si sit hoc exilium patrios addice penates, et vacum quiris otia grata sequi. Non ego vec profungi nomen, sotemoe recuso. Laetus et exili conditione fruo. O utinam batis nunquam graviore tuiset, ille tomitano flebilis axu agro, non tonc jonio conquam cesiset comero, neve fore victor laus tibi prima maro. Tempora nam licet hit placidis stare libera musis, et totum rapiet me mea vita libri. Excipis hinc fessus sinuosi pompa theatri, et vocat ad plasus garrula scena suos. Sio catus auditus senior, sio predigus heres, sio procus ausposita calcide miles adest, sive dicentani funcundus lite patronus, detonat in conto barbara verba foro. Sepe vasa gnatos securis veservus amonti, et nasum rigidi fallit ubique patris. Sepe novus illicit virgo virata calores, quid sit amos nescit, dum quoque nescit amat. Sive cruntatum furiosa tragedia sceptrum, quasat et effusis crinibus ora rotat, et dolet expecto, et juvat et spectase nolendo. In intendum et lacrimis dulcis amoror inest. Surpur e felix indelibata reliquit. Gaudia et abrupto flundus amore candit. Sil ferus et tenebris lia iterat stigas criminis ortul. Conscia funerio pectora futore movens. Sil merit pelopea domus, sil nobilis ili. Aut luit incestos aula creontis avos. Sed neque sub tector semper nec in urbe letimus. Ilita nec nobis tempora verisunt. Nos quoque lucus cabit in vicina constitus elmo. Atque suburbami nubilis ubra loci. Sepius hic blandas spirantias sidera flammas. Virgineos videas preterisse chorus. A quoties digne stupue miracule forme. Quid posset senium ve reparare nobis. A quotis vidi superantia lumina gemmas, atque faces quodque volvit alterique polus. Colloqui bis vivi pelopis quae branchia vincant, cumque fuit puro nectare tincta via. Estecus eximium frontis, tremulosque compilos, aureaque fallax retia tendit amor. Pellasque genas, adquas hyacintina sordet, purpura, et ipse tua floris, adoni rubol. Cedite laudate totius Herodes alim, et quercunque vagum capit amica Jovem. Cedite Acinmenia turita fronte poile, et quos susa calunt, menonimaque ninum, bos etiam ad Danae fasce submitite nymphae, et vos illice Romulesque nurus. Nec Pompeianas tapea musa columnas, iactet et Orsolinis plena theatra stolis. Gloria virginibus debitur prima Britannis. Exteras sat tibi sit phonema posse sequi. Tuque obstane Dardanis Londinum structa colonis. Turigenum late conspician da caput. Tu nimium Felix intra tua minia Claudis. Quicquid formosi pendulus orbis habet. Non tibi tot cello scintillant astra sereno, Endimione tumba ministra Dei, cor tibi conspicue formaque oreque pole, per medias radians huba vidundas vias. Creditur hunc geminis venice invecta Columbis, alma ferentrigero milite cincta Venus, huic cnidum et reguas simontis flumines vales, huic pavum et roseam postabitura Cyprum. Es ego dum pueri sinit indulgentia celi, muinea quam subito linquere fosta paro, et vitare procul malefide infania cercis, etia divini moluis usus ope. Sat quoque junquosas cami remiere paludis, atque interum raucus momo adire scole. Interea sidim pavum cape monus amici, porcaque in alteros verba quorcas mondos.
Now came pious James from far north and began his reign over the people descended from Troy and Albion's wide domain. And now an inviolable bond had united the Scots of Caledonia and the English sceptre. Happy and prosperous, the peacemaker was seated on his new throne, secure from enemy or secret threat. Then the fierce tyrant who rules Acheron's fiery flood, who is the father of the Furies, a wanderer in exile from ethereal Olympus, has gone roaming over earth's vast orb. He was numbering his companions in crime and his faithful slaves by birth, those doomed to share his kingdom after their own miserable burials. Here he stirs up frightful storms in the middle air, there he sows hatred between like-minded friends. He arms invincible nations for intestine struggle and overturns kingdoms once flourishing under the olive branch of peace. He is especially keen to recruit to his power any lovers of pure virtue he can find. Master of deception, he does his best to poison the heart untouched by sin. He sets his secret traps and stretches hidden nets to catch the unwary, just as the Caspian tigress stalks her trembling prey through the trackless wastes in a moonless night while stars wink drowsily. So Summonus, shrouded in a smoking whirlwind of blue flame, falls upon nations and cities. And now appears the white cliffs and surf-beaten rocks, the land that delights the god of the sea, the land which long ago was named for Neptune's son, that son who, having crossed the ocean, did not shrink from challenging Amphitryon's terrifying son to fearful combat before the cruel days of Troy's demise.
As soon as he spies this land, blessed with the prosperity and joyful peace, its fields replete with Ceres' gifts, and, what stung him even more, its people worshipping the sacred glory of the true God, He breaks out in sighs that stink of Tartarian flames and yellow sulphur, sighs like those of the monstrous Typhus, imprisoned by Jove under Trinicarian Etna, blasts from his noxious mouth. His eyes flash fire, his adamantine teeth all in a row, gnash out a noise like the din of arms, like spear grinding against spear. I've wandered the whole world, he says, and here I found the only cause for tears. These are the only people to rebel against me, scorn my rule. These alone have power greater than my arts. Yet if my efforts have any effect, not long shall they continue unpunished. With that, he floats through the liquid air on pitch-black wings. Wherever he flies, adverse winds rush in before him, clouds thicken, and frequent lightning flashes.
And now he had flown swiftly over the snow-capped Alps and reached the Auvergne frontier. To his left were the cloud-capped Alpines and ancient Sabine land. To his right, Etruria, notorious for its sorcerers, nor did he miss seeing where the Tiber steals kisses from its Thetis. And then he alighted on the citadel of Aquarius, son of Mars.
Now when the evening dusk had returned its dubious light, the triple crown makes the round of the whole city, borne on men's shoulders and carrying his gods made of bread. Before him, cruel kings on submissive knees, and there is a long procession of mendicant friars. And in their hands they carry wax tapers, for they were born and drag out their lives in Cimmerian darkness. They proceed into churches, ablaze with many candles. It was St. Peter's Eve. And over and again, the wailing of chanters fills the empty domes and vacant spaces. They wail like Bromius and his crew, howling and chanting orgiastic hymns on Echionian Naracynthus, while astonished Asopus shudders beneath his glassy waves, and even in distance Cithaeron echoes the din from its hollow cliff.
When at length the wonted rites were complete, silent night slips from old Erebus' embrace, and with her goading whip urged to a headlong pace, her team of horses, blind Typhon, fierce Menanchitis, torpid Siope, side by an Acherontian steed, and shaggy Phrix with a bristling mane.
Meanwhile, the king-tamer, the heir of Phlegton, enters his bower. This secret adulterer never spends barren nights without some sweet awe. But scarcely had sleep closed his peaceful eyes, when the dark lord of shadows, and the ruler of silent shades who prey upon men, appeared at his bedside in a false shape. His temples gleamed with a false grey hair, a long beard covers his chest, his ash-coloured gown sweeps the floor with its trailing hem, a cowl dangles from his tonsured head, and to complete his disguise he has a bound hempen rope round his lecherous loins, and fastened lattice sandals to his slow feet. Francis, so the story goes, looks like this when he wandered alone in the waste wilderness and among the filthy dens of wild animals, and impious himself carried the pious words of salvation to woodland folk, and tamed the wolves and Libyan lions.
Thus disguised, the crafty serpent parted his foul lips and uttered these words: Do you sleep, my son? Does slumber overcome even your limbs? Are unmindful of the faith and neglectful of your flocks, while a barbarous nation, born beneath the Hyperborean sky, ridicules your venerable throne and triple diadem, and while the British archers scorn your rights? Arise, come on, rise up, you sluggard, you whom the Roman emperor worships, you for whom the unlocked gates of heaven's vault lies open. Break their swelling spirits and insolent pride, and let these sacrilegious know the power of your curse, and what the keeper of the apostolic key can do. Remember to avenge the scattered Hesperian fleet, and the Iberian ensigns sunk in the deep, and the bodies of so many saints nailed to the shameful cross during the Thermodontian Virgin's recent reign. But if you prefer to lie torpid in your soft bed, and refuse to crush your enemy's growing strength, he will fill the Tyrian sea with his numerous host, and plant his glittering standards on the Aventine hill. He will smash your ancient relics and burn them on the pyre, and trample your holy neck beneath his profane feet. You whose shoes kings once rejoiced to kiss. But do not challenge him to war or open conflict. That would be a wasted labour. A master of deceit uses guile. Against heretics, no subterfuge is disallowed.
And now their great king calls to Parliament patricians from the remotest parts of their country, the high-born men and venerable fathers in gowns and white hair. These you may scatter in the air, tear limb from limb, and burn to ashes if you ignite gunpowder under the foundations of the buildings in which they are assembled. Warn at once, therefore, any of the faithful still in England of this plan of action. Are there any among your followers who will hear the supreme papal commands and fail to act? When the people are still stunned and panicked by the blast, let the fierce Frenchman or the savage Spaniard invade, return in Britain to the age of Mary, and you, once again, will rule over the warlike English. Unless you prove timid, understand that all gods and goddesses support you, all those deities you worship on your feast days. So spoke the deceiver, and putting off his disguise, fled to Lethe, his unspeakably joyless kingdom.
Now Tithonia's rosy spouse opens the eastern gates and dresses the gilded earth with returning light, and still mourning the sad death of her black son, she sprinkles the mountain tops with ambrosial drops. And the doorkeeper of the starry court shook off his slumber and rolled away the sweet dreams and visions of night.
There is a place, shut up in eternal darkness and night, once the vast foundation of a ruined pile, now the den of fierce-eyed murder and fork-tongued treachery, both born and once fell from discord. Here, among the rubble and jagged rocks, lie unburied skeletons and cadavers thrust through with iron. Forever here, dark and cross-eyed, sits Guile, and here are seen strife and calumny, her jaws armed with fangs. Here are seen fury, 1,000 kinds of death and fear, and bloodless horror flying around, and ghosts slide unceasingly through the violence and silences. And the sentient earth wails and rots in blood. Even murder and treachery themselves cower in the depths of that cave, and, though no one pursues them through the cave, a horrible cave, jagged with rocks and black with deathly shadows, they retreat guiltily, ever looking backward. The Babylonian priest summons these champions of Rome, loyal to her through ages long. And this, he says, on the world's western edge, summoned by the sea, there dwells a people hateful to me. Prudent nature refused to connect them with our continent because they were unworthy. Thither bend your course with all celerity, such is my command, and let the king and all his nobles, the whole wicked brood, be blown into the air by Tartarian powder, and enlist this plot, any who are fired with zeal for the true faith and ministers of the work. He ended, and fell pair eagerly obeyed him.
Meanwhile, the Lord who turns the heaven's great sphere, and sends the lightning from his ethereal citadel, looks down and laughs at the vain attempts of the wicked crew, and will defend his people's cause himself. There is, men say, a place that looks out on Lake Mareotis, which separates the Asian continent from fertile Europe. Here stands the high tower of fame, daughter of the Titaness, brazen, broad, full of noise, and nearer to the twinkling stars than Athos or Pelion piled up on Ossa. 1,000 doors and entrances stand open, and as many windows, and the spacious halls within shine through the thin walls. Here a swarming crowd sends up a confused murmur, like the buzzing of flies around the milking pails, or through the wattled sheepfords when the dog star scales the steepest of heavens to its summer height. Fame herself, her mother's avenger, sits at the topmost pinnacle, and raises her head, studded all around with countless ears. With these she can detect even the tiniest sounds, and catch the faintest whisper from the remotest corners of the globe. Not even you, son of Aristor, cruel guardian of higher Isis, had so many eyes rolling in your cruel face as she. Eyes that never doze in silent sleep, eyes that sweep far and wide over the lands below. With these she often penetrates unlighted places, where even the sun's rays cannot go. Then, her 1,000 tongues wagging, she carelessly divulges all she has heard and seen to anyone. Now with lies she dilutes the truth, and sometimes she embellishes it with her own confections.
But still, Fame, you have deserved praise in our song for one good report, and there was never a rumour more truly honest. You are worthy of our song, and I shall never regret having commemorated you at such length in my verse. We English, who were plainly saved by your good offices, wandering goddess, render to you just thanks. God, who tends the eternal fires in their motions, hurled down a thunderbolt, and then, the earth still trembling, addressed you. Are you silent, Fane? Is this the band of impious papists hidden from your sight? This Crudus is conspired against me and my Britons, and this novel kind of murder being planned against King James?
No more, said he, but she responded at once to the thunderous commands, and, through swifter flight before, now she puts on creaking wings and covers her thin body with party-coloured plumes. In her right hand she takes a sonorous Temesian trumpet. Without delay, she beats the yielding air with her wings. And, not content to outstrip the rushing clouds, she soon leaves behind her the winds and the horses of the sun. As usual, she first spreads ambiguous rumours and vague rumours throughout the English towns, and then, in a clear voice, she makes public the plots and foul deeds of treason, unspeakably horrible, and she even names the authors of the crime. Nor does she the garrulity conceal the places prepared for this ambush. Her news amazes young men, frightened girls, and weak old men alike. People of all ages are suddenly struck to the heart by the sense of such a great disaster.
But meanwhile, the Heavenly Father looked down from above with pity on his people and thwarted the papists' cruel attempt. They are seized and taken off to severe punishments. Sacred incense is burned and grateful honours paid to God. All the joyous crossroads smoke with genial fumes. The young people dance in crowds, for in all the year there is no day more celebrated than the 5th of November.
Hello, welcome to Christ College. I'm going to be reading Edification Exercise in the College, which Milton wrote while he was studying here. Hail native language, that by sinews weak didst move my first endeavouring tongue to speak, and madest imperfect words with childish trips, half unpronounced, slide through my infant lips, driving dumb silence from the portal door, where he hath mutely sat 2 years before. Here I salute thee, and thy pardon ask, that now I use thee in my latter task. Small loss it is that thence can come unto thee. I know my tongue but little grace can do thee. Thou needst not be ambitious to be first. Believe me, I have thither packed the worst, and if it happen as I did forecast, the daintiest dishes shall be served up last. I pray thee then deny me not thy aid, for this same small neglect that I have made. But haste thee straight to do me once a pleasure, and from thy wardrobe bring thy chiefest treasure. Not those newfangled toys and trimmings slight, which takes our late fantastics with delight, but cull those richest robes and gayest attire, which deepest spirits and choicest wits desire. I have some naked thoughts that rove about, and loudly knock to have their passage out, and weary of their place do only stay, till thou hast decked them in thy best array, that so they may without suspect or fears fly swiftly to this fair assembly's ears. Yet I had rather, if I were to choose, thy service in some graver subject use, such as may make thee search thy coffers round, before thou clothe my fancy in fit sound, such where the deep transported mind may soar above the wheeling poles and at heaven's door. Look in and see each blissful deity, how he before the thunderous throne doth lie, listening to what unshorn Apollo sings, to the touch of golden wires, while Hebe brings immortal nectar to her kingly sire. Then passing through the spheres of watchful fire and misty regions of wide air next under, and hills of snow and lofts of piled thunder, may tell at length how green-eyed Neptune raves, in heaven's defiance mustering all his waves, then sing of secret things that came to pass when beldam nature in her cradle was, and last of kings and queens and heroes old, such as the wise Demodocus once told, in solemn songs at King Alcinous' feast, while sad Ulysses' soul and all the rest are held with his melodious harmony, in willing chains and sweet captivity. But fie, my wandering muse, how dost thou stray? Expectance calls thee now another way. Thou knowest it must be now thy only bent to keep in compass of thy predicament. Then quick about thy purpose business come, that to the next I may resign my room. Good luck befriend thee, son, for at thy birth the fairy ladies danced upon the hearth. Thy drowsy nurse hath sworn she did them spy, come tripping to the room where thou didst lie, and sweetly singing round about thy bed, strew all their blessings on thy sleeping head. She heard them give thee this, that thou shouldst still from eyes of mortals walk invisible. Yet there is something that doth force my fear, for once it was my dismal hap to hear a sibyl old, bow bent with crooked age, that far events full wisely could presage, and in time's long and dark perspective glass, foresaw what future days should bring to pass. Your son, said she, nor can you it prevent, shall subject be to many an accident. O'er all his brethren he shall reign as king, and every one shall make him underling. And those that cannot live from him asunder, ungratefully shall strive to keep him under. In worth and excellence he shall outgo them, yet being above them he shall be below them. From others he shall stand in need of nothing, yet on his brothers shall depend for clothing. To find a foe it shall not be his hap, and peace shall lull him in her flowery lap. Yet shall he live in strife, and at his door devouring war shall never cease to roar. Yea, it shall be his natural property to harbour those that are at enmity. What power, what force, what mighty spell, if not, your learned hands could loose this Gorgon knot? Rivers arise, whether thou be the son of utmost Tweed, or Ouse, or Gulfy Dun, or Trent, who like some earth-born giant spreads his 30 arms along the indented meads, or sullen mole that runneth underneath, or Severn Swift guilty of maiden's death, or rocky Avon, or sedgy Lee, or Coley Tyne, or ancient hallowed Dee, or Humber Loud that keeps the Scythian's name, or Medway Smooth, or Royal Tower Tame.
This is a poem on Thomas Hobson, the university courier and postmaster, who is buried here in St Benet's Church. On the university carrier, who sickened in the time of his vacancy, being forbid to go to London by reason of the plague. Here lies old Hobson, death hath broke his girt, and here, alas, hath laid him in the dirt. Or else the ways being foul, 20 to 1, he's here stuck in a slough and overthrown. 'Twas such a shifter that if truth were known, death was half glad when he had got him down, for he had any time this 10 years full dodged with him betwixt Cambridge and the Bull. And surely death could never have prevailed, had not his weekly course of carriage failed. But lately finding him so long at home, and thinking now his journey's end was come, that he had taken up his latest inn, in the kind office of a chamberlain, showed him his room where he must lodge that night, pulled off his boots, and took away the light. If any ask for him, it shall be said, Hobson has supped, and's newly gone to bed.
Next up is On the Morning of Christ's Nativity.
This is the month, and this the happy morn, wherein the Son of Heaven's eternal King, of wedded maid and virgin mother born, our great redemption from above did bring. For so the holy sages once did sing, that he our deadly forfeit should release, and with his Father work us an perpetual peace. That glorious form, that light unsufferable, and that far-beaming blaze of majesty, wherewith he wont at heaven's high council table to sit the midst of trinal unity, he laid aside, and here with us to be, forsook the courts of everlasting day, and chose with us a darksome house of mortal clay. Say, heavenly muse, shall not thy sacred vein afford a present to the infant God? Hast thou no verse, no hymn or solemn strain to welcome him to this his new abode? Now while the heaven by the sun's team untrod hath took no print of the approaching light, and all the spangled host keep watch in squadrons bright, see how from afar upon the eastern road the star-led wizards haste with odours sweet. O run, prevent them with thy humble ode, and lay it lowly at his blessed feet. Hast thou the honour first thy Lord to greet, and join thy voice unto the angel choir from out his secret altar touched with hallowed fire?
It was the winter wild, while the heaven-born child, all meanly wrapped in the rude manger lies, nature and all to him had doffed her gaudy trim, with her great master so to sympathise. It was no season then for her to wanton with the sun, her lusty paramour. Wanly with the speeches fair, she woos the gentle air to hide her guilty front with innocent snow, and on her naked shame pollute with sinful blame. The saintly veil of maiden white to throw, confounded that her Maker's eyes should look so near upon her foul deformities. But he her fears to cease, sent down the meek-eyed peace. She crowned with the olive green came softly sliding down through the turning sphere, his ready harbinger, with turtle wing the amorous clouds dividing, and then waving her myrtle wand, she strikes a universal peace through sea and land. Though war or battle sound was heard the world around, the idle spear and shield were high up hung, the hooked chariot stood unsustained with hostile blood, the trumpet spake not to the armed throng, and kings sate with awe fly, as if they surely knew their sovereign lord was by. But peace was the night, wherein the Prince of Light his reign of peace upon the earth began. Smoothly the winds with wonder whist, smoothly the waters kissed, whispering new joys to the mild ocean, who now hath quite forgot to rave, while the birds of calm sat brooding on the charmed wave. The stars with deep amaze stand fixed in steadfast gaze, bending one way their precious influence, and will not take their flight for all the morning light, or Lucifer that often warned them thence, but in their glimmering orbs did glow, until their Lord himself bespake and bid them go.
And though the shady gloom had given day her room, the sun himself withheld his wonted speed, and hid his head for shame, as his inferior flame the new enlightened world no more should need. He saw a greater sun appear than his bright throne or burning axle tree could bear. The shepherds on the lawn, or ere the point of dawn, sate simply chatting in a rustic row. Full little thought they then that the mighty Pan was kindly come to live with them below. Perhaps their loves, or else their sheep, was all that did their silly thoughts so busy keep. When such music sweet their hearts and ears did greet, as never was by mortal finger struck, divinely warbled voice, answering the stringed noise, as all their souls in blissful rapture took. The air such pleasure loth to lose, with thousand echoes still prolongs each heavenly close. Nature that heard such sound beneath the hollow round of Cynthia's seat, the airy region thrilling, now was almost won, to think her part was done, and that her reign had here its last fulfilling. She knew such harmony alone could hold all heaven and earth in happier union. At last surrounds their sight a globe of circular light, that with long beams the shamed fat night arrayed. The helmed cherubim and sworded seraphim are seen in glittering ranks with wings displayed, harping in loud and solemn choir with expressive notes to heaven's newborn heir. Such music, as 'tis said, before was never made, but when of old the sons of morning sung, while the Creator great his constellations set, and the well-balanced world on hinges hung, and cast the dark foundations deep, and bid the weltering waves their oozy channel keep. Ring out, ye crystal spheres, once bless our human ears, if ye have power to touch our senses so, and let your silver chime move in melodious time, and let the bass of heaven's deep organ blow, and with your ninefold harmony make up full consort to thy angelic symphony.
For if such holy song enwrap our fancy long, time will run back and fetch the age of gold, and speckled vanity will sicken soon and die, and leprous sin will melt from earthly mould, and hell itself will pass away, and leave her dolorous mansions to the peering day. Yea, truth and justice then will down return to men. the enamelled arras of the rainbow wearing, and mercy set between, throned in celestial sheen. With radiant feet the tissued clouds stand steering, and heaven, as at some festival, will open wide the gates of a high palace hall. But wisest fate says no, this must not yet be so. The babe lies yet in smiling infancy, that on the bitter cross must redeem our loss. So both himself and us to glorify, yet first to those he chained in sleep, the wakeful trump of doom must thunder through the deep. With such a horrid clang as on Mount Sinai rang, while the red fire and smouldering clouds outbreak, the aged earth aghast with terror of that blast shall from the surface to the centre shake, when at the world's last session the dreadful judge in middle air shall spread his throne. And then at last our bliss, full and perfect is, for now begins. For from this happy day, the old dragon underground, in straighter limits bound, not half so far cast his usurped sway and wrath to see his kingdom fall, swinges the scaly horror of his folded tail. The oracles are dumb, no voice or hideous hum runs through the arched roof in words deceiving. Apollo from his shrine can no more divine with hollow shriek the steep of Delphos leaving. No nightly trance or breathed spell inspires the pale-eyed priest from the prophetic cell.
The lonely mountain's awe and the resounding shore, a voice of weeping heard and loud lament, from haunted spring and dale, edged with poplar pale. The parting genius is with sighing sent, with flowered inwoven tresses torn, the nymphs in twilight shade of tangled thickets mourn. In consecrated earth and on the holy hearth, the lars and lemurs moan with midnight plaint. In urns and altars round, a drear and dying sound affrights the flamins at their surface quaint, and the chill marble seems to sweat, while each peculiar power forgoes his wonted seat. Peor and Baalim forsake their temples dim, with that twice-battered god of Palestine, and moon Ashtaroth, heaven's queen and mother both, now sits not girt with tapers' holy shine. The libic Hammon shrieks his horn. In vain the Tyrian maids their wounded Thamos mourn. And sullen Moloch fled, hath left in shadows dread, his burning idol all of blackest hue. In vain with cymbals ring, they call the grisly king in dismal dance about the furnace blue. The brutish gods of Nilus fast, Isis and Oris, and the dog Anubis hast. Nor is Osiris seen in Memphian grove or green, trampling the unshowered grass with lowings loud, nor can he be at rest within his sacred chest. Naught but profoundest hell can be his shroud. In vain, with timbrelled anthems dark, the sable-stoled sorcerers bear his worshipped ark. He feels from Judah's land the dreaded infant's hand. The rays of Bethlehem blind his dusky eyne, nor all the gods beside longer dare abide, nor Typhon huge in ending in snaky twine. Our babe, to shew his godhead true, can in his swaddling bands control the damned crew.
So when the sun in bed, curtained with cloudy red, pillows his chin upon an orient wave, the flocking shadows pale, troop to the infernal jail, each fettered ghost slips to his several grave, and the yellow-skirted fays fly after the night steeds, leaving their moon-loved maze. But see, the Virgin blessed hath laid her babe to rest. Time is our tedious song should here have ending. Heaven's youngest teamed star has fixed her polished car, her sleeping lord with handmaid lamp attending. and all about the courtly stable, bright harnessed angels sit in order serviceable.
The next up is Ed Patrem.
Ed Patrem, to his father. Nunc mea Pierios cupiam per pectora fontes irrigua turquere vias, tutumque per ora movere laxatum gemino de vertice vivum, ut tenues oblita sonos audacibus alis, surgat in officium venerandi musa parentis. Now I wish that the Pierian fountains might pour their inspiring waters through my breast, and the stream that flows from the twin peaks roll all its flood upon my lips, so that my muse, unmindful of her trivial strains, might rise on adventurous wing to do honor to my revered father. I know not, dearest father, how this trifling song that I am meditating will please you. Yet I know not what offerings from me can better repay your gifts, though not even the greatest can repay them, nor can any gratitude expressed by the vain return of empty words be equal to the obligation. Nevertheless, this page displays my resources, and all my wealth is set forth on this paper. But I have nothing save what golden Clio has given me, what dreams have brought me in the distant caves of sleep, and what the laurel copses of the sacred wood and the shades of Parnassus bestowed. Scorn not the poet's song, a work divine, which more than anything else reveals our ethereal origin and heavenly race. Nothing so dignifies the human mind as its origin, and it possesses yet some sacred traces of Promethean fire. The gods love song, song that has power to move the trembling depths of Tartarus, to bind the nether gods and restrain the cruel shades with triple adamant. The priestesses of Apollo and the pale trembling Sibyl disclose in song the secrets of the distant future. The sacrificing priest composes verses before the vestal altars, whether he slays the bulls that tosses its gilded horns, or sagely consults the destinies hidden in the reeking flesh, and reads fate in the entrails still warm with life. Yet I too return to my native Olympus, and when the changeless ages of eternity stretch forever before me, I shall go through the temples of heaven crowned with gold, accompanying my sweet songs with the gentle beat of the plectrum, wherewith the stars in the arch of heaven shall resound. Even now, that fiery spirit himself, who encircles a swift orb, sings with the starry choirs in an immortal melody, an ineffable song, while the glittering serpent checks his angry hissing, and fierce Orion with lowered sword grows gentle, and Marusian Atlas no longer feels the burden of the stars. Poems were wont to grace the banquets of kings, when as yet luxury and the bottomless pit of gluttony were unknown, when at dinner liers flowed in moderation, when according to custom the bard, seated at the festal board, his unshorn locks wreathed with a garland from the oak, used to sing the feats of heroes and their emulable deeds, sang of chaos and the broadly laid foundations of the world, of the creeping gods that fed upon acorns, and of the thunderbolt not yet brought from the cavern of Aetna. And finally, what will the empty modulation of the voice avail, void of words and sense and of eloquent numbers? That song will do for the sylvan choirs, but not for Orpheus, who with songs and not with lute held back the rivers, and gave ears to the oaks, and moved the shades of the dead to tears. These praises he has from song. Do not, I pray, persist in contemning the sacred muses. Think them not vain and poor, by whose gift you yourself are skilled in setting 1,000 voices to fitting numbers, and are trained to vary the singing voice through 1,000 modulations, who by merit should be heir to the name of Arian. Now, if it has happened that I have been born a poet, why is it strange to you that we, so closely joined by the loving bond of blood, should pursue related arts and kindred ways of life? Phoebus, wishing to divide himself in two, gave some gifts to me, others to my father, and we, father and son, possess the divided God. Although you pretend to hate the gentle muses, I believe you do not hate them. For you do not bid me go, Father, where the broad way lies open, where the field of gain is easier, and where the certain hope of laying up money shines golden. Neither do you drag me to the bar, to the laws of the nation so ill observed, nor do you condemn my ears to silly clamorings. But wishing my already nurtured mind to grow more rich, you permit me in deep retreats, far from the city's uproar, to pass my pleasant leisure by the Aeonian stream, and to walk as a happy companion by Apollo's side. I pass in silence over the common kindness of a loving parent. Greater matters call me. When at your cost, dear father, I have become fluent in the tongue of Romulus, and had mastered the graces of Latin and the lofty words of the magnificent Greeks, when became the lips of Jove himself, you then persuaded me to add to these the flowers that Gallia boasts, and the language which the modern Italian pours from his degenerate mouth, a witness by his speech of the barbarian tumult, and the mysteries which the prophet of Palestine utters. Finally, whatever is contained in the heavens, in Mother Earth beneath, and in the air that flows between the earth and heaven, whatever is hidden by the waves and the restless surface of the sea, this through your kindness I may learn, through your means, if I care to learn. From the parted clouds appears science, and naked bends her lovely faces to my kisses, unless I wish to flee, and if it be not dangerous to taste. Go now, gather wealth, fool, whoever you are, that prefer the ancient treasures of Austria and of the Peruvian realms. But what more than learning could my father have given, or Jove himself had he given all but heaven? He who committed to his young son the common lights, the chariot of Hyperion, the rains of day, the tiara radiant with life, gave not more potent gifts, even had they been saved. Therefore, since I am one through the humblest of the learned company, I shall sit among the victor's ivy and laurels, and no longer obscurely mingle with the dull rabble. My footsteps will avoid the gaze of profane eyes. Away, sleepless cares, away complaints, and the wry glance of envy with sidelong goatish leer. Fierce calumny, open not your serpent's jaws. O most detestable band, you can cause me no unhappiness. I am not under your law. Safe may I walk, my breast secure, high above your viper stroke. But as for you, dear father, since it is not granted me to make a just return for your deserts, nor to recompense your gifts with my deeds, let it suffice that I remember, and with gratitude count over your repeated gifts, and treasure them in a faithful mind. You too, my youthful verses, my pastime, if only you dare hope for endless years, dare think to survive your master's pyre and look upon the light. And if dark oblivion does not drag you down to crowded Orcus, perchance you will treasure these praises, and a father's name rehearsed in song as an example to a distant age.
The next up is on Shakespeare. What needs my Shakespeare for his honored bones, the labor of an age in piled stones, or that his hallowed relics should be hid under a star-pointing pyramid? Dear son of memory, great heir of fame, what needst thou such weak witness of thy name? Though in our wonder and astonishment hast built thyself a lifelong monument. For whilst to the shame of slow endeavouring art, thy easy numbers flow, and that each heart hath from the leaves of thy unvalued book those delphic lines which deep impression took, then though our fancy of it self-bereaving, dost make us marvel with too much conceiving, and so, sepultured in such pomp dost lie, that kings for such a tomb would wish to die. The next up is at a solemn music.
Blessed pair of sirens, pledges of heaven's joy, sphere-born harmonious sisters, voice and verse, wed your divine sounds, a mixed power employ, dead things with inbreathed sense able to pierce, and to our high-raised fantasy present that undisturbed song of pure consent. I, sung before the sapphire-coloured throne, to him that sits thereon, with saintly shout and solemn jubilee, where the bright seraphim in burning row their loud uplifted angel trumpets blow, and the cherubic host in thousand choirs touch their immortal harps of golden wires with those just spirits that wear victorious palms, hymns devout and holy psalms, singing everlastingly, that we on earth with undiscording voice may rightly answer that melodious noise, as once we did, till disproportioned sin jarred against nature's chime, and with harsh din broke the fair music that all creatures made to their great Lord, whose love their motion swayed in perfect diapason, whilst they stood in first obedience and their state of good. Oh, may we soon again renew that song, and keep in tune with heaven, till God ere long to his celestial consort us unite, to live with him and sing in endless morn of light.
Fly, envious time, till thou run out thy race. Call on the lazy, leaden stepping hours, whose speed is but the heavy plummet's pace, and glut thyself with what thy womb devours, which is no more than what is false and vain, a merely mortal dross. So little is our loss, so little is thy gain. For when as each thing bad thou hast entombed, and last of all thy greedy self consumed, then long eternity shall greet our bliss with an individual kiss, and joy shall overtake us a flood, when everything that is sincerely good and perfectly divine, with truth and peace and love shall ever shine about the supreme throne of him, to whose happy making sight alone, when once our heavenly guided soul shall climb, then all this earthly grossness quit, attired with stars, we shall forever sit, triumphing over death and chance and thee, O time.